They're awful heavy.
If you'd like it.
Without the microphone.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, so as soon as I probably need Sue to go get it.
I think she's generally right.
No, she is.
She is.
You shall receive.
Okay, so here we go, we're gonna make it official. Order in the court. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ken. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And many more.
Where's my gifts?
Isn't our presence enough?
We thought it was just us. Right.
My dear.
All right, I'll take
Right
that.
here.
Sandy, if you could, call the roll.
Rice? Berkowitz?
Here.
Brooks? Cowan? Here. Mueller?
Here.
Newquist? Here. Ogalla? Weigel? Trenier?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Tom, could you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Look at there, he's so deaf. All right, I would entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes for January 14th.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Miscellaneous legislative reports. So we have 4, plus the sustainability grants and the comment article on charging stations. So I'm gonna skip to the bottom maybe, and then we'll work our way up. So there was an article in the paper, and I asked Sandy to copy it, and she put it in here, and it just talks about the demand for electric vehicles is expecting to rise, and more people are looking to get these little charging stations installed. And there's a company called Volta that's doing a lot of them, and they're basically using them as a point of purchase. Thank you. They're using them as a point of purchase advertising vehicle. How many people in here have noticed over the last, 100 years, those little advertisements on the end of the grocery shopping carts? Point of purchase advertising. So that's what Volta is doing. They have them at the Macy's in Bolingbrook, and there's probably lots of other places where they are. And because they get their revenue from the advertisers, they don't charge you to utilize the charging station, so it is totally free. So I just want to let people know that those are going up in places. And then the other one, the article just above that, was the Will County offering sustainability grants. That is the electric vehicle charging stations as well. And so that's grants that a municipality can apply for to the county. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that those options were out there, and encourage people to, talk with their municipalities and get them to request some grant money or talk to Volta or whatever they want to do. But the cars are coming. I mean, even the oil companies know gasoline isn't going to last forever. The manufacturers are making them. Go ahead, Sherry.
So I have a question about the sustainability grants. They are really geared toward putting in the charging stations, correct?
Yes.
So who pays for the maintenance of them and who pays for the electricity?
Well, I can't honestly answer that, but I think we have somebody here. Come on up. Come on up. Come on up, Mark.
Good morning.
Press the star if you wouldn't mind.
Pretty please.
There we go. You can hear me. All right, so in a nutshell, the grant is designed to help with the installation price, but it doesn't actually cover the entire installation price. And it covers 2 different levels of charging stations. So there's a level 1 charging station, which is pretty much just the outlets in this room. So you can plug a car in, they will come with a plug, and you can charge it. It's a slow charge.
Takes 8 hours.
Yes, exactly. But if you plug that in and you were paying regular retail rates for electricity, it would average 8 cents a kilowatt hour, or less than 80 cents for a day for an employee to be plugged in and charging. So it's extremely minuscule. It's not like buying a full tank of gasoline. It's a lot different. And then the level 2 charging stations are way more expensive. They can be up to $20,000 to put in. We're offering $3,500 at that expense. The other thing to keep in mind with the level 2 charging station, if you're going to charge somebody to use it, because you're giving them 240 power now, not 110 or 120 as a standard outlet, you're actually going to have to pay for software to do that. So you're looking at a $1,200 cost just to pay for that software. Whereas if you don't charge someone and you let them use a level 2 charging station for free, you're still only talking about a couple of bucks of electricity, possibly if somebody used it and somebody else used it, because now you're getting charged up in 2 to 3 hours. Even if it was charged all day, you're still only talking about a couple bucks of electricity, and you're not making back that $1,200. So if you did it for free, it would be $200 just for the software to track how many different users there were and exactly how much electricity got used. But you wouldn't get that charging ability on there. So right now, as you just mentioned, we only have about 1% of Illinois drivers with electric vehicles. It's very small, but it's growing. Every manufacturer makes electric vehicles. They're available in all kinds of price points, and there's used ones on the market. And those, of course, are lower in price. So it's become more and more and more affordable for anybody who wants to go that direction.
Yeah, my car actually came with the 110 line. I could plug it in my house or anywhere I want. It's in the trunk. My husband actually had the 220 line installed because it's a much faster charge. It takes 3 hours. It did not cost $20,000. The little machine with the handle and the hose is like $600. Now, these things are huge that they're putting in. I mean, they're static signs, changeable, LED lighting and flash and pomp and circumstance. And the biggest cost is probably bringing the electric to the site. We talked about this in Forest Preserve. And recently at a meeting here at the county dealing with the parking lot at the courthouse and the revamping of the parking lot, we discussed the idea of making sure that when we're putting in the electric under the street to have 1 or 2 stations, that we put enough infrastructure in place to maybe have 10 or 20 stations down the line so that we don't have to rip up the road again or, whatever. I'm ad-libbing on the number of stations. Just the idea that we plan ahead, unlike what we did with the original courthouse where there was no place to put wiring for, internet and all these fun things we have today. So we know the cars are coming, and we want to make room for being able to adapt. So, and the municipality's got a shot, and depending on how difficult it is to get the electric to the spot, like let's say they're revamping a parking lot at the new Lenox Library, and they want to put in a charging station, that this is the time to do it. Beth?
I was just curious if you had any response on the grants yet from municipalities?
I have a request to come address the Will County Governmental League, because they're getting the questions, I guess. So that's a good thing. And I had a grant submitted for the water refill station. They would like to have one at the Bicentennial Park, which has lots of kids that come, and having refill bottles would be a great asset for them instead of the putting your mouth down and trying to fill a bottle on an angle kind of thing in a traditional fountain. So, but it just rolled out, and I think people are just trying to learn about it. I've had a couple of one-on-one sessions to try and get people excited about it. The city of Joliet asked me to work for their environmental commission on that.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, you said 1% of Illinois residents have an electric vehicle. Do you have any idea where that concentration is? I would assume that's higher up in our area, but...
Well, I would assume. There's
you don't know.
2 places that I could assume. It's going to be the Chicagoland region.
Yeah.
And now you can see like Teslas. Now that Tesla really got it rolling, you'll see those almost everywhere you drive now somewhere. But But beyond that, there's a town, Bloomington, and Normal. They had a Mitsubishi plant, and years ago Mitsubishi created an electric vehicle, and when they did, the town decided to become EV friendly. And so they were actually tracking it. They had a goal of having, absolutely brilliant, and that's why when Mitsubishi closed, and Rivian, an electric truck manufacturer, decided to set up shop of all of the empty auto manufacturing plants around the country, they picked Bloomington Normal to go in, and they have Rivian being built there right now. But their goal was 1,000 people that would have registration for, and they got up to 300. Right now they're at 210. So, but it does pay off to be EV friendly, and that town is EV friendly. There's plug-in stations all over the town.
That's really cool. Huh. Very neat. Anything else on the EVs? Any more questions? So I think that kind of addresses.
How fast does the second one, the super one, recharge?
So there's actually 3 levels altogether. The second level is a 222 line, like if you were to put a hot tub in your house, and just like Jackie said, it's very inexpensive to do it in your home. It's very inexpensive to do it if you wanted to set it up for free, just like the 110 is. If I wanted to put 110 in a parking lot, it doesn't cost me a lot to pull that electricity. But the third level is the game changer, and that is the level 3, which can be a 360 and go up to 720.
I didn't even know electric went that high.
And the Tesla charges in 15-20 minutes, and that's what it's using. And the Teslas don't use the same cord as the other ones, but they have an adapter. So if you're out in a Tesla and you need to charge and you can't get to a Tesla station, you can use level 2 charging station.
But it doesn't work the other way around, right?
No,
I can't take my Volt to a Tesla station.
You cannot.
That
no.
was my experience.
Yeah.
And it's 3 hours on the 220, 240 line.
Yes.
I always call it 220, but it's
Yeah,
It's 240.
Generally, it's but
why they
it's
call
the
it
same.
110, but it's really 120. I don't quite get it.
So the line going in is 240, but the power coming out is 220. It's the same with your 110s. The power going in are 120, but the power coming out is 110. And that's just because you lose a little bit, you know.
Thank you for that electricity education section this morning. That was really good, because I mean, I never did understand that. Everybody calls it a 220 line, but yet I knew it was 240 volts, and I just didn't quite get the understanding there, so.
I was right there with you until this all started rolling out, and I had to learn about it.
I did not know that the Tesla's charged in 15 minutes. Oh my God, and my neighbor has one. We were talking on the phone the other day, and they said, well, we're just charging up our car right now, but we can answer some questions. And I'm thinking to myself, you're out shopping, you're charging up your car, where are you? You know, but now you've explained, it only takes 15 minutes.
Yeah, not at the 240s though. Only
Yeah,
if
but
they're
no, they have a
only at
Tesla.
they have the Tesla charging? Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
So there you go.
interesting, very interesting. Okay, anything else on EV cars and stations and all that kind of stuff? No? Okay. So we've got 3 or 4 issues here of the ISACO newsletter. There were a couple of things that were mentioned, but the one I wanted to bring up, because apparently we were unaware of it, and maybe we don't participate in it, and maybe Nick knows the answer since he's here. Save the date, ISACO Lobby Day, scheduled for April 29. Do you know anything about, like, does Will County participate with that?
Well, it's a relatively new organization. So,
Right, and this is their first lobby day.
So we don't have any past participation, because they haven't done it, but it's like, I think we could.
Well, I wanted to know if we were planning to, if there was somebody designated to do that
I
kind of
mean,
thing.
there's, the county executive is part of the county board chairman group,
Mhm.
and then I believe Unity is part of the, you're still part of the large urban county, and then I think that's it right now, right?
I think Denise is on the legislative.
I'm actually on the board of directors.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay, and well, what I can tell you is,
And that would be the same
During the
day that
fly-in.
we are in the fly-in in DC. So we have not as yet, to your question, Jackie, asked anybody to go down to represent us for that.
and I didn't know if we were allowed to have somebody, because I mean, I get we're on ISACO, but there may be a
Certainly.
designated list of people that have been chosen already, and I'm just not aware of that, so I wanted to point that
Has
out.
not happened.
Yeah, that it's during the fly-in. Did they mention the thing about the coroner in the newsletter on the 3rd?
On February 3rd.
Yeah, so on February 3rd, there was a there's been a bill introduced down in Springfield, the February 3rd edition. Am I on the right one? Yeah, discontinue the office of county coroner. We've kind of been through that in Will County. Tom, you were probably on the board. Oh, Mr. Moustis, when he was the chairman, brought in a medical examiner, and there was quite the kerfluffle, I like that word, around the idea of having a professional medical examiner in our county instead of a professional coroner. And there was testimony and hoopla, and I guess, I can't believe I'm the only one that remembers this. No, you weren't on yet. And I was not yet on the board, I don't believe. I was here watching. This would have been like between 2005 and 2007, somewhere at 2008. It was after Stacy Peterson's disappearance and the prior to the conviction of Drew for the murder of wife number 3. She was 3?
Yeah.
Stacy was 4.
Yeah.
Look at get the reporter in the back here. All right, 3. And the kerfluffle, if you will, was around the fact that somehow it was not detected that she was murdered. It was ruled an accident. And Mary's giving me a frown.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to remember back. I remember
He was a famous
discussion happened.
medical examiner.
But there were some real costs to going to a medical examiner. There were
Super.
some real barriers. So I would encourage, if you wanted to talk about that, to pull up the minutes from those meetings and, review them or get a summary from staff or something, because there was, I don't remember exactly what it was, but as they started to really dig deep into it, it was
Very
a big
expensive,
deal. It was
yeah.
very expensive.
Because you're basically hiring a medical doctor for 3 shifts, 7 days. And they make, a couple hundred, $200,000, $300,000 a year apiece. And so, yeah, and that was back then, 10 years ago. So ISACO obviously is against the bill, but you should be aware that it's out there, and that definitely would have an effect on us, I'm assuming. If we had to get rid of our coroners and go to a medical examiner, it would be expensive. Yeah, he's from Rockford. There's something in that northern water.
Is it proposed that, because I didn't get a chance to read it, but is it proposed that anyone wanting to replace the coroner's position with a medical examiner be in elected office then, like that?
No, it was just discontinue the office of county coroner, and there was very little information. Brent's here.
It's not gonna go anywhere.
No. Just interesting that it's come up again, and given our history, I thought because there's new people on the board, we might as well talk about what happened in the past. And oh God, I'm starting to sound like who.
That's pretty funny, Jen.
I've been here way too long, people. Way too long. Okay. Oh.
She agrees with them from time to time.
I know, it's scary. It's scary. Okay, was there anything else that anybody else saw that they had, questions, comments, concerns about it? Okay. We've already voted on cannabis, but I will share that there is a information session on cannabis in Naperville if people are interested in learning more about it. It's definitely there. I see the governor has created an opioid overdose prevention and recovery steering committee. You want to speak to that? Come. Pretty please.
Excuse me. Good morning.
Good morning.
There was an announcement last week or 2 weeks ago. This is an identification that they, black and brown communities, their statistics went up in 2018, whereas everybody else went down. So they are dedicating a specific amount of money to go in and do more than just what we do in our communities, Narcan testing and harm reduction. They really recognize that part of the issue is lack of resources, lack of jobs, and lack of economic development. So it's a broader perspective, and it has a good group of people working with it. They've been doing this, I mean, this was presented a couple years ago too. I think it's a smart move, I understand, and it's got a good collaborative going. However, as many of you might have realized, our statistics went up last year. So 2018 is not representative, I think, of what's been going on. And they're all going to go up. We all know that fentanyl's making everything go up. So I recognize that we haven't paid as well. The epidemic has affected the suburban communities first. And historically, there's issues with ignoring drug abuse in communities of color. That's bigger and beyond the opioid epidemic. But we do need to pay attention that it's spreading everywhere, and there are issues around lack of economic support for people who are in under-resourced communities. But I did talk to the Lieutenant Governor because I pointed out to her that ours went up, and we are a very big rural and urban community. And so we're not reflective of what you might see in DuPage County or Lake County. We're very different. And I think we need to keep reminding our legislators of that we are like bipolar, so to speak. You know, we have
both.
Yes, we have both. And although when you look at our deaths, they're in our city areas. So we need a new strategy or another type of strategy to address this, and I'm moving in that direction.
So I have a question for you. I had a resident come up to me Saturday and ask about Narcan training for people, not just professionals in the law enforcement or EMT fields, but just community members that maybe know they have someone in their family with a drug issue and they want to be prepared. So 2 questions. The first one, does the Narcan help with fentanyl?
Yes, so
Okay. All right.
Narcan takes care of all opioids.
Okay, just wanted to double check on that. And then 2, why are our police departments not doing open training, or fire departments? Because it is happening in Hinsdale. They do community meetings, they train lay people on how to administer Narcan. And when I asked a community that shall not be named about their practice, they said, oh no, we wouldn't want to take on that liability. And I'm thinking to myself, I've been told that this stuff doesn't do anything. It's like squirting up Flonase, you know?
It's even easier than Flonase. So first of all, I trained 1,700 people, regular citizens, last year. So I do this all the time. We have a training coming up at the end of February in
I'd like to
Lennox.
host one in Bolingbrook, please, please.
We've
And
had 2 in Bolingbrook.
Let's have more.
They have to sponsor and people have to come out.
It's the city area. I mean,
No. And the library's been very, very supportive of having community programming.
See, we don't have any newspapers up there, so it's really hard for the community to know what's going on. I mean, the library's a great community center, but there are many, many people that are not tuned into the library. And
Right.
I don't want to stereotype anybody, but I would say that perhaps people that are using drugs aren't thinking about going to the
You don't think
library.
they're going to the library? They might be hanging out at the library, actually, because that's a place where homeless folks do stay there.
We don't.
Well,
yeah.
here's the strategy I've been using is using support groups. So the support groups attract family members as well as active users. And so we train people every week in all the different support groups. There is not a support group in Bolingbrook.
No, there's not. We
There's
don't
one
have
in
a drug
Plainfield is the
problem in
closest one.
Bolingbrook.
That's
don't
right, didn't you know that?
We have no drugs in Bolingbrook. None, zip, zero, zilch. We don't have any homeless people either. nor pregnant teenagers.
Right.
Kathleen, do you also include AA?
Oh.
groups?
Oh, yes, I've done a couple of fellowship groups too, yeah.
Okay. We need to let's work together. And
Okay,
let's
to do more in Bolingbrook.
Yes.
I'd be happy to.
Because I have people that really wanted this training and they live in Bolingbrook and they're on Facebook constantly. And they belong to a group in Naperville and they don't know about your training.
Okay, they need, yeah.
So this is, there's a whole group of people that are just not getting the word.
Sometimes people think I set up standardized training like once or twice a month. I don't, I do it on demand.
Okay.
And I will meet with people over 5.
Yep.
If there's more than 5 people in the room. I do all of Red Cross, so all those folks in Romeoville are all trained too. So whatever you want me to do, Jackie, we can work it out.
Thank you.
No problem.
Very much. Okay. Yes, yeah.
I assume you have stats about where in the county the most deaths are occurring, right?
Yes.
And are we trying to target those areas for something like Narcan training?
I've done the whole county, so I've focused more on the whole county getting around because of these recent stats.
Right.
Joliet is going to be our focal point, and Lockport, because I'm also curious, I talked to Lori Summers about digging deeper into who are those people who are passing away. Are they getting out of jail within the last 2 weeks? Are they getting out of treatment? Yeah. I did also get a call from one of the Joliet police folks about the article, that I haven't read your article yet, but because Joliet's identified, and they're not doing anything special for the community. So it's not like some of the Lockport's really on top of it. They still have a problem, but they're working on it really hard. They're trying. So, and our sheriffs are trying. I mean, they're working hard on it. So
Yeah, everybody is.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No doubt. Yeah. It's just it's difficult. Netta?
I have the sheet, the data you shared with us at Public Health and Safety.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure that staff would make a copy of this for anyone who wants it, but it has information about
Where
we're at and who, and just, quick analysis, so. Sure. That's the clean one.
Thank you.
Okay, I got 2 copies, so I wrote on mine.
Thank you. Did anybody else have anything else from the Saco newsletters they wanted to bring up, talk about? Julie, your life?
I wanted to make a comment, about funding, because this increase also reflects on another problem we're having. I know that mental health support therapists in our area, they're bulging. They have more, they can't even take on any additional clients. So we did, when we passed the recreational canvas, we had a discussion that we need to take the money or the revenue from those sales and put them in a special fund. And this is definitely part of the reason why we need to make sure that that's done, because the problem that you're identifying, it's going to cost money to pursue this and to reach out to the community. So I think that's a conversation that is not finished.
Thank you for your comments, Julie. Beth?
I know that this is getting a little bit off topic, but I just want to respond to that I totally support the money in general going to general purposes like that, but I would only support it if it's not too restrictive. Because the worst thing that could happen to us is that we earmark the money with so many well-intentioned parameters, and then as we evolve, the drug scene changes, the needs change, a facility opens, a facility closed, that we're restricted in what we can do. So I know this has come up in the past, and I want to see us think about flexibility in any kind of fund, I don't even know, earmarking or
Well,
whatever
I
you
just
call it.
want to point out that we've known that our behavioral health area is under-resourced in Will County. We're not unusual because it's hard to attract people. I mean, there just aren't enough therapists and psychiatrists and folks going into the field because it doesn't pay great, right? So, but we're trying to do things where the health department and the health center are trying to attract people and keep them. And so I have a workforce grant that we're training recovery coaches, because those are baseline people who could make it and build a foundation of folks in the community, because it's that recovery period, getting into treatment and then maintaining that recovery, that's critical. And so it's complicated. And I always support your health department, because it's the health department that gives the baseline to people who are under-resourced and don't have those community skills or resources. Our health center has tripled in their medical assisted treatment clients, because they built a foundation, they hired the staff, and now they're expanding. So with the new building in the health department, I expect to see the same thing. So, just dying to get in that new building and triple this resources they can use and see people. They just don't have the capacity right now.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to old business, the legislative agenda. You guys should have gotten the shorter, nice version. put together by our lobbyist, Julie Curry. Really nice, sweet, to the point. Did anybody have any questions or concerns? Anything new that needs to be addressed?
I already have one.
Okay, well then
I'd like to
we're,
bring Cam.
yeah, please, Tom.
No, this North Point thing, if this goes in, I think we need to talk about the Ileana again in order to get some of the traffic
Truxa.
off of I-80 and the northern part of the county.
I'm all for talking about Ileana regardless. I mean, I was at a presentation yesterday talking about the gas tax and how 55% of the tax money revenues that are created or collected by the state of Illinois go to the downstate regions. Only 45% go to Chicago, i.e. Cook, and the collar counties. Yet this is where all the traffic is. Now, I get we need roads in the rural areas too. I get that. But you've got an awful lot of people up here. And so our 4-cent a gas tax, 4-cent a gallon tax will also help expand the ability to deal with some of this stuff. But as we all know from being on the board, it takes years to just even redo a road. And like you're talking Ileana, and I agree with you, but I see that like the Ileana probably wouldn't be built even if we agreed to build it tomorrow for 20 years. But I agree.
Well,
Did
it's
you
not
want
on
to put
our
it?
agenda. Maybe we should put it back on.
Well, what's the feeling of the committee?
So here's the thing, the way I look at it is we need to put the investment into the roads where we have it. The congestion is up here because that's where all the majority of the warehousing is up here. I don't believe that anybody from Center Point or if North Point went in, and I know that I was at a meeting last night where people are very opposed to it. And, you know, Joliet may be annexing that area, which is bad for those of our residents in the unincorporated area getting pounded by yet another big warehouse on Route 66, which makes no sense to me at all. But anyway, if you have those things here, I don't know how many would get on. They'd have to then get on 55 then and go south, I suppose, to the Ileana. Would they do that? Would they take that time to then come north on 65 or 41? Or would they just say, you know, I'm just going to take 80 and get over there? Because the time might be about the same, the timing. And I'm not paying the high tolls on that tollway. You don't know. I mean, we don't know that, and
I take 355 to get to the forest preserve. It's
But
not
you-
the only route. I could go straight down 53. It's in my backyard.
you could, right.
But I take 355 because it's faster, it's easier.
But they're not
driving.
going to the forest preserve, so
No,
they're
but I
going-
mean, people go out of their way to get where you're going.
People go out of their way all the time. I don't know if a trucker is going to take, if the time is less, even though they're sitting on 80, if it takes them less time than to go south, to take the Ileana, to come back north, if their intention is to continue going east, or even if they're going south, I mean, I don't know that they're going to take that route.
Yeah.
It's something that people are talked about, but the tolls that, as we were told at the time, would be very expensive. Not to say how much to build it, right?
Right. I can only tell you from my travels, and I've been traveling since I was 5 years old. Anytime my dad was taking us across the country, which was every year, if we could bypass a city that we weren't planning to stop and stay at or see something in, we bypassed it. We went around it. We didn't want to get involved with the traffic, especially if it was morning rush or evening rush. And this was in the 70s when we didn't have near the traffic we have today. But you know, most of the freight and things that come through Illinois, they're not necessarily stopping in Illinois. I mean, I think we've talked about that in our legislative
Correct,
agenda.
they're not stopping here, right.
Stuff is coming from California or Iowa or, you know, wherever, and it's just going on to the East Coast or vice versa, back to the West Coast.
Right.
Our roads are jammed. I mean, we just...
So if they're going east-west right now, are they going to come from the west, going east, go south? They're going to go
We did it all
south.
the time, all the time.
As a traveler, you do that. As
Because you
somebody
want
who's
to avoid the
working,
traffic.
as a traveler, you do that. We did that too. We did that all the time. I do that now when I go on vacation.
We don't have any truckers on our board.
an engineering firm to do this study.
Study, yeah, I mean, I
So
think
they've done the
study.
they've done the study, you know.
Yeah.
Urgent for those of us on the board to be
Yeah, I mean, I,
like trying to
Rehash it
that
all.
determination.
Well, except for the fact that Tom asked that we put it back on the state legislative agenda, so there is a point in us discussing it on the board right
Well,
here.
let's get the facts and then discuss it instead of just
But
all
we have all that,
improvising
we're not improvising facts.
facts.
Maybe you are improvising facts, I know that I'm not improvising facts. And then- excuse me, I was still talking here. So I'm not improvising any facts. I was on the board when we had the full discussion of it. I was involved with it. I looked at the study. I know why it was kicked out by an environment, the plan was kicked out by environmental issues. So we aren't rehashing it. We did discuss it on the board. You guys are new, so you hadn't had that discussion here. So you're right, but I don't know that that is, I think it's important to talk about, and Tom is suggesting putting it back on. I'm giving my opinion. I don't think the truckers are gonna go south to go, and it's only that short distance, right? It's only between 55 and 65, so you can't come all the way east or west and go. You have to do that south to go across, so.
okay. All right, thank you. Tom, I'm not necessarily opposed to your idea. I think maybe we should get some people in. I think that makes good sense. And Nick, you had your hand raised. You're next.
Just want to offer a quick comment.
So I can tell you this, that the governor's office has not taken a firm position whether they're interested in pursuing it or not pursuing it. That doesn't mean they're not, doesn't mean they are. They just haven't taken a firm position. But in our agenda, draft agenda, we do have a request for Peatone-Wilmington Road, which in the absence of the Ileana, Peatone-Wilmington Road is already being heavily used. And so if we're not going to get the Ileana, then Will County is going to spend a lot of money upgrading that road, and or we're going to seek assistance to get money to pay for that upgrade, because it is being used now to get people between 55 and 57 and beyond. So I'm not suggesting a position on this, but I just think this issue is still, whenever I'm with IDOT, I ask them, do they have a more clear position, and at this point they don't have a yay or nay. So, but we do have the Peatone-Wilmington in our draft agenda, which I think is positive, because that is being used right now. So,
Sherry, did you have something?
Yeah, I would really like to see us have this discussion again about the Ileana, because for one thing, it's I know not all of this issue is in Will County, but it's such a regional issue for the eastern side of the county. Dixie Highway is ridiculous. I mean, I was driving to Beecher the other day, and tons of trucks, you know, going the opposite direction on a narrow 2-lane road. It was slippery, it was snowing. I mean, it's dangerous. And not only that, but 394, and again, this is not really Will County, 394 cannot handle that level of truck traffic. There's stop and go lights. I mean, if you're on a surface road there and you're actually trying to get out onto 394, you can wait 3-4 lights trying to make a left turn. And it's all because of the backup of truck traffic. It takes so long. And this is all anecdotal. You know, I would really like us to open this up for discussion and actually review the current traffic patterns and volume before we make any kind of decision.
Well, let's see if we can't get some people in from the Ileana to speak in our March meeting.
If I could
Yeah.
weigh in on that, thanks. So one thing, you know, I want to express is that the legislative agenda isn't necessarily the end-all be-all of what, you know, we're pushing for. What, you know, we spoke, I think last meeting about we can have sort of one-pagers that we can have, you know, that basically research the issue, see what's come up that's new, Judy, and that, you know, with that and with our help from our local lobbyists, you know, if there's a contingent that wants to even go down, right, Brent, and speak to some of the legislators regarding that issue, I think, you know, that absolutely could happen. As far as, you know, it being in the actual book, if that's the direction that the
committee would like, that's fine. However, I will say that this is something that we are hoping to get passed in the February meeting. Because last year, we didn't pass it until what I consider too late, because the session was already in full swing, the dates for filing bills had already passed. So I think it's important, that we get it passed. That doesn't say that that's the only thing that we're supporting.
Right.
But we can have separate issues. There's 2 separate lobby days that people have the opportunity to go down and speak to the various legislators. So
Or they can just drive down the street and meet with their legislators.
absolutely, absolutely. Yes.
There's nothing to stop anyone on this committee or anybody on this board or anybody in this county
Yeah.
from making an appointment with your legislator and sitting down and talking about anything that you want to. That's really our responsibility as citizens. Tom, one more?
I believe the CED still has that on their agenda, so.
I think you're right, and we should, if we can get some people in here, Brent, Nick, speaking to you, help please, maybe for the March, April meetings to talk about the Ileana.
That would be my,
Okay, more.
would be something that I would do.
Okay.
And just so you know, the March meeting, which is, what's the date on that?
10th, March 10th.
We could definitely look into doing that. What specifically are you hoping to?
I think there's
learn?
new board members that don't know anything about the plan of Ileana
Okay.
necessarily,
Okay.
nor what led up to it, the research, the statistics, as Mimi pointed out, the facts, the studies that were done.
Okay.
It would be good to have somebody come and talk to us about it and remind us.
Sure, I can look into that definitely,
Yeah.
for March.
I was just gonna second what Sherry said about looking at some fresh data to
Yeah.
see what's changed, because it has been a long time.
It has.
So, but I definitely support us talking about that, because I know it's something that comes up a lot, so.
Jackie.
So does our community-friendly freight study identify that? Does it identify where the truck traffic is going? Because if you're on Route 1 or 394 turning into Route 1, rural routes are where highways, and that's where traffic would travel. I don't know where they're going, but they're going north and south. So east-west is not north and south. Usually cut that when you go east-west.
Maybe they do, I don't know what they're doing, but that's the thing that you would need to know. And of course, the traffic on Peatone-Wilmington Road is high because the warehousing in Wilmington, they're not coming north to get on 80, they're coming to 57, possibly going south or north on that to go wherever they're going. So that's why Peatone-Wilmington Road is being used heavily. I don't know, I drive that road and I am not bombarded. I guess the difference is when you, and a lot of you people live in a very busy area. I grew up in the city of Chicago and I lived in Bensonville, so I know about traffic too. And a lot of the traffic is different for the people down here than what they've dealt with in the past. And I do want to say one more thing regarding North Point. So at the meeting last night, it was very interesting because they listed the different groups that were opposed to North Point, and the Will County Board was listed as opposed to North Point. And I
It's
talked to,
interesting, I don't think we've taken a vote.
we haven't, I talked to the reporter and I said, I don't know why they put, because she came up to me, and then she also talked to Don Gould, and I said, we've never had the discussion. We were told they were going to come to the county.
And they never did.
And then they never did come to the county. I said, we've never had a full discussion ever. I wouldn't be able to say what anyone in the room thinks about North Point at all, one way or the other. I said, we've never had, the reporter couldn't believe it. We never had the discussion.
These kind of things happen all the time. People get.
Well, I just want everyone to know that they're saying the Will County Board is opposed to it. And I thought, well, I'm not really sure whether it's opposed to it or for it or anything, because we've never had a discussion. Yeah.
Right, exactly. All right, well, I'm going to move on with the state agenda. We had some ideas, and one of them was reduce the printing of the ballots by 110%. And I see we have our people here. So why don't you come on up and let us know what's happening with that, if anything, and if not anything, what do we need to do to make something happen with that?
Right.
That's our note list. If you're wondering where I'm getting this from, it's old business number 1, letter B.
I got it.
There you go. All right, let's start.
I'm like,
New stars, Sandy. New
all
stars.
right. So I guess I brought like some notes on a couple different things. So we met with the governor's office in the Collar counties last month. So just started like opening a dialogue about funding and like different legislative needs. We talked about cybersecurity, obviously. I actually opened up some conversations just last week with the Department of Homeland Security and CISA to talk about just some different things that we can start doing, continue to do to help with any cybersecurity issues. We want to talk about, like funding for technology upgrades. We're seeing a lot of that in the office, a lot that probably should have been done in the past, but we're finding that out now. We've got grant funds for some of that. We're eligible for like $200,000 for like voter registration grant funds, and then we still have the HAVA grant money that we are working to use. We're working with like the Clerks Association and particularly the Collar counties, because we find that when we talk to the entire Clerks Association, some of the smaller counties don't really have the same needs as we do, so it was really helpful to sit with Lake County and DuPage and Kane, because our needs are very similar.
Do you think that some of the reason they don't have the same needs is because they don't have the same resources and same population? Because I would say they have the same needs. Security is security, whether you're in Putnam County, Will County, or Cook County. Cybersecurity, I would think, would be the same.
Yeah, I think
So
just that in general, right. But as far as like population and the amount of precincts and polling places they have, like there are things that just,
It's different.
it's different, yes.
Who's your contact in the governor's office for the Collar counties? I didn't know there was one.
Well, it was just a meeting called like by the Collar counties with the governor's office. So we met with governor's staff, Christian Mitchell and Bria Scudder and I can't think of the other person's name right now, but Connor McDermott was there. There was a lot of folks in the room. So that was it was really helpful to start that conversation. A lot of us, I think, see the need to upgrade our actual voting equipment. And so if there's anything we can do on a legislative level, or they can help in that way, that'd be great. But just aligning that, conversation and maybe coming up with something like together would be great for us. So we've started those conversations, with the Collar counties, kind of working on a follow-up for future visits and things like that to keep the governor's office, abreast of what's going on and what we come up with. We also talked about the ballot purchase mandates, aligning petition filing dates. Even on a federal level, it really impacts like objections and when people file and when we have to get the ballots printed. It can be quite the cluster. So if we can, work together on something like that, that'd be great. And then we are obviously in constant contact with our association on like vote by mail legislation and things like that. So we are working on a lot of stuff like constantly.
Well, I saw that Representative Connor has introduced something on the vote by mail, and it was more of a flowery resolution to just keep encouraging it, and that was good. But again, those kind of things impact the requirement to print the 110%, because you're printing 110% of the total registered voters, not of the people that haven't voted by mail already, because obviously you have to put in that order way ahead of time. So has anybody, have you contacted anybody in our legislative group, like in our county, that would sponsor a bill to cut that number?
So we haven't, I think that with all of these discussions taking place, we don't know in the future what equipment we will have, if we will need that 110% ballot printing requirement. If we decide to change voting equipment and we go with a different equipment that uses the thermal paper, we won't have to worry about that. So I think we just haven't had those further discussions.
Thermal paper, and maybe it's evolved, but you can't leave it in heat or sun or the ink disappears. Is that still an issue? Is thermal paper better now?
So we are in very preliminary discussions.
Got it.
About that.
Yeah,
So
just
don't have a
curious.
ton of like details
Info,
on
right.
the exact like ingredients of the paper.
Yeah, I just remember faxes disappearing, you know?
I don't know that we know the
literally
details
page.
of thermal paper or the physics of thermal paper, but I think one of the things we're looking at, well, first of all, none of our ballots, once they're voted, are going to be sitting in the sun. They're in ballot lockup at all times, so, that's one issue. But I think the key thing that I think Lauren wants to point out is that these are issues where if we move forward with equipment like this, and I think Lake County right now is in the process of doing that as well, we would reduce our need to print ballots. The majority, if not all of our ballots, at some point down the line would be printed on demand at the polling place, as voters came in and, used a touch screen to vote. It would print out a ballot, and then that ballot would then be fed into a ballot tabulator, and that would provide the paper record that we would have, if there were any challenges to the election.
Mimi, you had a question?
That was all really great information, and I was just going to say, since I'm on the large county caucus for ISACO, would it help for me to bring that up in that group? Bring up anything regarding this stuff in that group to sort of push from the other end? Maybe we could talk about what might be helpful?
Yeah, I think we can.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's what we decided when we left the governor's office. We were like, I think it would be helpful after the primary for us to sit back down with the clerks from the Collar counties to really like come up with a solid list of what, like, ask almost of what we're, what we're looking for, and then, we can cohesively
Let's
push
stay in
that.
contact about it, because then if I can bring it to the people on the large county caucus in ISACO from the other end, maybe that helps.
That'd be great. I think we're gonna have to stay on top of it from every direction.
Beth, did you have a question?
I just want to go back to the 110%. I was trying to track it, but the 110% printing requirement that creates a lot of waste is only a requirement for pre-printed, for counties that are pre-printing. So if you stop doing that approach, the 110% requirement wouldn't apply to Will County? Is that right? Right. All right, I tracked it.
Yeah,
Excellent.
we wouldn't have to pre-print the ballots.
Okay,
So
so-
those are the ones that go out on election day. The early voting sites have the ballot on demand.
So it's not going to stay a huge issue here unless you guys stay with that technology of pre-printing, and maybe we want to address it.
Correct.
All right.
That is exactly correct.
The other thing that I was tracking on elections is the requirement by an election judge to initial the top of the ballot. Representative Connor said that he was going to be working on some legislative changes there. I didn't see anything introduced. Brent and I looked this morning. We didn't see anything. I mean, he's got a couple of bills on elections, but not that. Do you have any concerns about judges not having the requirement of having to initial at the top of the ballot?
I think we've done a lot of training, recently on that. I think we'd have to see legislation. I mean, we follow it closely as far as I haven't seen anything yet. I think it would be, I don't know, it would be hard to maybe
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know that
come
we
up
have
with something.
Yeah, I don't know that we have a firm position on it just yet. I mean, obviously, it's one of the ways that we confirm the ballot process is moved through the,
It's also like a verification
Right.
process.
But don't they sign a document? the voter?
They do, but it's also, it's like a secondary or tertiary check almost.
It
you
would
know
have
what
to
I
be at
mean?
least
So,
tertiary because they sign
correct.
and the election judge gives them a ballot and marks off in the polling book in some respect, don't they? Other than just, the voter signs
The application,
the application and then
the receipt.
Well,
is there some sort of marking in the polling book on election day?
Well, I mean, it's a multi-pronged confirmation process. I mean,
It
the
is.
election judge signs or initials the application as well, and then, provides the receipt to the voter, and then the judge, per law, is supposed to initial the ballots also. It's another form of verification that one ballot has been through the entire process.
That they gave the right ballot style, that just another check along the way. So I'm open to looking at legislation. I mean, I've been open-minded, since I got in. So just want to see what they propose and if it makes sense.
The one thing that I can say is that Lauren has initiated you know, that is a key component of all the election judge training at this point. It is something that is stressed.
It's like bright red everywhere.
Everywhere we
Literally,
work through that
full
process,
bright
there
red.
is something that steps up that says important. Election judges must initial the top of the ballot.
Even
And
in
that's
our
something that
office.
they've been doing all the training on it. And it's just something that's very focused right now.
Is that invalidated if it doesn't, is not initial?
A candidate can raise an objection and have an elected official thrown off their board.
Okay.
It happens. Yeah.
So I just wanted to clarify, so the initialing of the ballot showed that the ballot was cast at the polling place during the election. It wasn't then added sometime after, between the time the polling place closes and the time the ballot is counted. So that's the verification that the initialing provides.
This might be a little overkill, but maybe a sign in the polling place so that voters know that the top of their ballot has to be initialed? I mean, another voter.
Yeah, so the voter can at least be aware of this requirement, because they're not. They're asked to sign the receipt, and that's it. And they're not told that, hey, if your judge doesn't initial that ballot, your ballot could be invalidated. Your vote could be thrown in the garbage.
We have signs for just about everything in a polling place right now, and I don't know if one more would be overkill or not. But I think the key is something that, you know, has been initiated already, which is to stress this in the training process, stress it in all of our updates to the election judges. It goes out right now, and every email that we're sending out to the judges, everything has a reminder that they need to initial the top of those ballots.
I don't know, I just know if a voter goes in and they don't darken one of the ovals, the machine beeps. And the voter has the option to then look at their ballot and figure out if they want to change anything or whatever. There's no beep for a lack of initial.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't a poll watcher be able to be like, hey, judge, you forgot to initial this ballot? I mean, wouldn't that be one of the potential roles of a poll watcher?
Conceivably.
So,
If they can get close enough, sometimes the election officials don't let them get that close.
well, we can't.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know.
No.
It's, but if in the training, they knew that, you know, the poll watcher might be looking over their shoulder to see if they initial.
Sounds like they are. So, I mean, it's definitely, I understand your concern, but I also understand that there has been a reason this process has developed. So, you know, instead of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, maybe the solution might be already in front of us or something. I don't know. I'm not sure.
We've been training,
Yeah.
stressing it and training.
That's why we brought it up,
Yeah.
you know, because I've been aware of at least two people that have had issues. One was removed from office, and the other one had to spend $15,000 to keep their position. So that's not a good way to go. That's not what our free and fair election process is about. And if there's a problem with the law or the process, I think we should be looking at it. And,
Well, I mean, there are probably other legislative processes to look at as well. I mean, you know, when we sat down, you know, with regard to the Valley View School District issue, I mean, Lauren's position was that all of these, you know, that the standard that, you know, that a challenger should not be allowed to cherry pick a specific district, you know, or specific precincts to, you know, achieve the numbers he or she may want. And that if that's the standard, if someone is going to say that, you know, that these, you know, ballots were not initialed, that's going to be the standard, then it needs to apply across the entire district. That was her position with regard to that particular issue, and I think that would be, you know, the position with regard to any such challenges, that it ought to be applied fairly and across the board.
then maybe that's the legislative change that we need.
That's,
And that's fine, but we need something, because when good people look away, bad things happen. And I don't want to be accused of being one of those good people that looked away, because in my mind, this was unfair.
Yeah, I was just thinking, it's kind of hard to do it because the person who's standing, when you're putting your ballot in, they can't really look at your ballot at that point because you voted, so it has to happen up front. And if they're very busy, I could see that they'd possibly do it, but, I mean, if you're at the voting booth, you got your ballot, I don't know where else you're getting it from. I don't know why it should be, it doesn't seem like it should be rejected when it's gone into the ballot booth there, you know what I mean? I don't know, it just seems like.
Well, once again, I mean, it's being stressed in the training. We have more than
Yeah.
1,500 election judges that are in place on election day, plus the election judges who serve in the at the early voting sites. You know, it's a rare situation. I mean, obviously, when you have that many people involved in that, you know, complicated of a process, you know, these kinds of things can occur from time to time. But we're, you know, and when it comes up, I think the thing that we need to do and that we're doing right now is stress it in the training, and that's what we're doing.
We did, yeah. I mean, we're putting the new YouTube videos up so our election judges can watch them like all the way up until the day before the election. And I just watched one. I mean, it's like in red. Do not forget to initial the ballot, you know, the ballot in red. I mean, it is a constant thing that we're doing right now. I think we do have some new folks too out in the different early voting sites, not the same people, like out at Fountaindale and things like that. There are different people there that are newly trained, you know, really eager and ready to do everything correctly. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think we've really taken a lot of, I mean, every step that we can right now without changing any legislation to make sure that that is a huge focus.
I just know we seem to have troubles in this country with counting ballots.
Not here.
And I'm speaking specifically of Iowa right now. When the math doesn't add up, they still don't make the change.
We don't have trouble counting ballots here. Our ballots are counted. You know, there may be an initialing issue from time to time, but our ballots and our counts are accurate.
So just to, Jackie, to make sure that, you know, I'm clear, regarding the legislative agenda, is there a specific law or a specific, you know, I mean, we've talked about initialing, you know, I think the thing that Chuck was talking about was regarding if there is a question regarding an election that you can't pick and choose where they sample the ballots to get. Is that what you're talking about, Chuck?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was, I mean, you know, we had conversations with, you know, with council with regard to this, and you know, I mean, we realized at a certain point that we were outside the realm of counting ballots or the elections process, and we were in
The judicial process.
the judicial process, in the law, and we were told that very frankly. I mean, because we were, you know, I think we're both horrified that you know, that someone was going to be able to apply a standard to these sets of this set of precincts because this person felt that these were the numbers that would benefit, you know, him the most. And we thought it should have been applied across the board. And Lauren sent a very strong, you know, letter in that regard, and the state's attorney's office filed a motion on her behalf in that regard. Now, beyond that, I mean, it's an issue of case law, and that's outside of our realm. It's in your realm. You know, I don't know what we would do.
That's my question really to Mary. Mary, was that more of a, you know, an interpretation by the judicial branch, or is that something in the law that, you know, we can?
Well, I think that the respondent in that case could have picked their own precincts and they did not. Whether they realized that or I don't know. You know, so there is an opportunity to examine all of the precincts. It may be just the way this developed. And I think, you know, I absolutely share Jackie's concern. I do not like to see people's ballots thrown out. I don't think anybody likes to see that. We all want everybody's vote to count. And we need to balance that with the protection of the integrity of the election. I think that they are doing a great job training the judges, because not only is it the person who is actually initialing it, then the other judges are aware and they're watching that judge who's supposed to be initialing and reminding them, you know, hey, make sure. So raising that awareness, I think, is huge. You know, and we can talk about additional ways to catch that, you know, and you know, State's Attorney's Office is more than happy to help the clerk in finding ways to do that and go forward from there. But I think that it was
you know, just the way that particular case came down.
So it's not necessarily the law that needs to be changed.
Oh, I don't know. If a judge is able to cherry pick precincts, then the law.
The judge does not, sure, no.
Well,
It is
the judge
person-
allowed the complainant to cherry pick precincts then, when all of them could have been recounted. All the
No, but
precincts
no,
were
it wasn't.
available.
I do not think that that was within the realm of the judge to expand what the plaintiff in that case chose to pick. I think it was up to the, under the legal, and this is the way the legal process, and Maura, you understand this. The plaintiff raises issues, the defense can counterclaim and raise their own issues. That didn't happen. It is not up to the judge to be partisan and choose a side. He has to remain unbiased. So it was not up to the judge, this was not the judge. This was the parties being cognizant of what their rights are and how they could have done it. So,
But if there was a law that said that somebody was challenging the ballots, and the law stated that every ballot in that race had to be re-examined, counted, however you want to phrase
you
it,
can do that. You could
then
absolutely
you
do
can,
that,
you
yes.
can put that legislative protection in there. And then somebody who wants to complain isn't likely to go in and cherry pick 5 precincts and say, oh, I should have won because in these 5, these ballots weren't initial. And so if they would be leery about doing that. They would say, oh, well, if I do that, they're going to recount every ballot in the election, and the result very well may come out the same, which statistically it probably would.
I think the one other thing that I think we were both surprised of is that we were, I think Marion, correct me if I'm wrong, we were respondent in this case, but really we had no standing whatsoever with regard to, you know, with regard to how the process should play itself out.
The clerk never has a position one way or another. The clerk is named as a respondent because they are the ones who receive the direction from the court of what to do. And they also have to produce the evidence that's going to be examined.
Yeah,
But
so they have to be included.
But they do not have the opportunity to advocate for one side or the other either.
But that was kind of our conversation though as well, is we were not advocating for one side or the other, we were advocating for the process itself, you know.
I understand,
Yeah.
I understand.
I mean, it's our process, it's our procedures, you know, and, you know.
Yes, I understand your position.
Is there, would you guys be able to point to the law that you feel should be changed? Like, would you be able to do that?
We would not.
Yeah, we
No.
will go through the statute with regard to objections. You know, it set forth the process. Now, it may be, it may not be statutory, it may be that the way case law has developed. I will have to go back and look at that.
Is that something you think that you could do fairly quickly, Mary, so that we could include it?
We'll do, sure, we'll go through and we'll provide a summary. Do you want that for next meeting?
Well,
It could be a standalone, it's
Okay,
fine.
okay,
It doesn't
all
have
right.
to be ready for the February meeting, but
Okay,
yeah,
all
for
right.
next meeting would be
Okay.
good.
Sure.
It's not fair that somebody unknowingly,
Yeah.
you know, their ballot is being thrown out. It's just, it goes against the whole process.
Okay. So we'll put that on the agenda for next meeting and hopefully have some information from the state's attorney and we can work on it.
And then we have to find somebody that'll carry our water for us. Okay, all right. Anything else?
Yeah, sorry, I apologize, totally had no power at all. My iPad forgot to charge it last night, didn't get a chance to look at it. A couple of things, going back to the state legislative agenda, if I may. The state legislative agenda, we had talked in the past about looking at getting legislation for the drainage district fees.
And I've reached out to Julie and I've talked with Brent and they think it's a much better strategy since it's just an issue unique to your area in the county. And in fact, in most parts of many parts of the states, they've actually eliminated drainage districts, that we meet with the staff, I want to say IDOT, but yeah, the IDOT people, and I'm guessing Julie and Brent are working on setting up that meeting, so we could talk to them about a possible explanation and or solution, preferably solution, to the situation.
Yeah, I'm guessing, I don't know for a fact, but I would think that Southern Illinois should have drainage districts, so they don't have the
for stormwater, I would think that they would have them still, so
I don't know.
that is something that I will look into. And then one more thing, in here, it seems like we could condense in a fashion here. In the past, when we did the state legislative, when I first got on the board, and you remember, the state legislative agenda, state and federal, was like this big wish list. What do you want? It's like a little kid at Christmas time, putting down everything to Santa Claus, right? And so what we did was we said, okay, let's put in this our main focus. What do we need today? Because yes, we need something else, but this is, that way when the legislator gets it, they get so much stuff to look at, they're looking at less stuff. So when I'm looking at this, I look at two things on the Will County transportation priorities. We have the east-west connections, and then we have the Eastern Will County traffic study. To me, essentially they're the same, because if you look at the east-west connections, you're specifically talking about a lot of the area down the South Suburban, which is connecting. So we've thrown the South Suburban Airport and Ileana language back into this, so that we had kept it out in the past. And it is the responsibility of the county to plan for traffic and economic development, which we support. We support the Center for Economic Development and John Gruling's group. They're the ones who bring in these warehouses, which cause all this traffic trouble for us, rather than bringing in more high-tech jobs that we would be able to have better paying jobs. Our college students would have the opportunity to stay local rather than having to travel to a suburb like Naperville, Oak Brook, or down to the city of Chicago. If we had some high-tech jobs in this area, that is what he really should start focusing on. So I'm wondering if we condense the east-west connections with the Will County traffic study. Essentially, it is the same thing, except we've thrown in the words, I think, for purposes, to say that we're talking about the South Suburban Airport and the Ileana again. That is something that has stagnated because South Suburban Airport, as far as I know, there still hasn't been anyone chosen, no one supporting it, things like that. It's been going on since I was much, much younger than 30 and I'm much older than now. So I'm just thinking we should be able to condense those. That's less for them to look at.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think they just wanted them separate because the east-west connections specifically was talking about phase 1 funding for both Crete, Moni modernization and Wilmington Viaduct. And so those projects are like real projects, whereas the other is more of a study just in general of the area, not specific to those two projects that apparently are already kind of in the works. And Nick, I don't live in Crete, Moni, Peatone, or Wilmington. Do you have anything additional to add to what I just said that might make sense? I mean, that's kind of how I looked at it.
Yeah, I think you're correct.
Yeah, I mean, the IDOT study or the traffic study would cover way more than just those
We
two
try to
areas.
seek funding, to study those areas for the exact reasons that you talk about, like it's important to know, a lot of times you've brought up that, sometimes we're doing an intersection to nowhere.
Oh, we are.
And that,
It is $205 million.
Okay, well, we're not going to talk about that now.
And
We have
so
more on the
I
agenda
do
this
think that the studies are beneficial in the sense, that they get input from, various leaders around the area, just as Jake said. Nick, did you have another comment on that?
I hesitate to weigh in on this one, but I think the language in here, Judy, and I'm willing to work with you or whoever one would talk about, but it says prior efforts by the state related to the South Suburban Airport in Atlanta have stagnated or stalled. So we're not saying they're supporting it, it's going forward, or it's saying they're stalled. But the need is, as we've discussed many times, the need is still there for transportation improvements, right? Infrastructure, bridges.
That's
roads.
correct.
So,
And any type of east-west movement within the county would really be completely separate from if there was an airport. Ileana, I guess, could be part of that.
but I think what we're saying here, and I read it too that way, that this could be duplicate, but it's like we're looking at a study to look at the overall. I think what I heard earlier in this meeting, and I've heard at other meetings, is like we're looking at the overall flow of traffic, but we're zeroing in based on the efforts that the District 1 board members have participated in municipal boards, is how do we get to a point where we agree on a route. And I think we've kind of got a proposal now, this traffic study, for a feasibility study, which Jeff brought forward, I think, this month,
I think, is this month, maybe it was last month, I don't know. But there's a proposal in DOT to actually go forward with the feasibility study, because if it's feasible and we deem it feasible, then we chase the funding or we pay for it ourselves. Ideally, it would be a cooperative with the state, the county, and the municipalities to make this go. And that's how I mean, this kind of was the topic the other day at Public Works, is how do we spend our money wisely on our system, but where there's connections to municipal or state roads. So I guess my point is, we need a feasibility study to do the road improvements, irregardless of the airport or Ileana.
Correct.
I mean, if the Ileana was, tomorrow if they said we're announcing an initiative for the Ileana, maybe we'd think twice about Peatone-Wilmington, because that was kind of the route
Maybe.
partially for, but
Well, it
right
takes
now,
so long to build
but
that.
right now, we don't have an Ileana moving at all, and the South Suburban Airport's being talked about, but I wouldn't hold your breath that it's gonna be moving quickly, so I think we just need to focus on what we can do now for the residents, and this talks to economic development too. I mean, we want to create economic
So
development.
we want to create economic development, and that is very true, okay? And we need to also look at the fact, as we move forward as a county, and I've said this again and again, and I certainly hope some people in the room will start listening to me, because we have all adopted this Greenest Region Compact, which talks about all different types of things about sustainability for the future. And we really need to look at the fact that 40% of our land in Will County is agriculture. And is the intention of this board, and I think it is, to completely pave over everything, let John Grueling have his little mighty fist out there slapping down concrete and asphalt everywhere to build more warehouses? Or are we going to look at the viability and the economic benefits that agriculture brings to us? Because they bring a lot to us. Everybody here got here today and all week because we've been eating food that is produced on land. We happen to live in an area that is significant and could provide lots of good food sources for our local communities if we would develop that plan and make a plan for that. We don't ever have that conversation about what do we want to do? Do we want to try and make a plan and look at what the benefits are? And no one knows what the agricultural benefits are in Will County. And I'm going to bring that information forward because that is something that is always, that's not looked at. People look at farmland that's actually dubbed vacant land, which a farmer will say, it's not vacant, it just currently doesn't have a crop in it because it's not seasoned to have a crop in it. And that's something that we need to look at, not just say, let's pave over everything. Because do we want to become DuPage? I thought people moved here because it's a nice place to live, because we have both, as Dr. Kathleen Burke said, we're kind of bipolar. We have the nice big cities. I can go to Bolingbrook and shop if I want to, and I do go there because they have good shopping. And then people love to live in the, come to the country and see the open space. So that's just what I'm thinking, and I'm thinking we probably still could combine those in a way that would be, we have to have that route because of the warehousing that is in Wilmington. They need to get to 57, so Peatone-Wilmington has to come there. I think trucks would still take it, even if there was an Ileana.
So maybe just a suggestion. The item on the first, it's the second item, I guess, is the east-west connections. Maybe we make that unique to the Peatone-Wilmington and the Eastern Will County traffic study specific to the Eastern Will County area, which is the 6 townships basically, or 5 townships, whatever you want to say.
That's kind of how I read it now.
Well, but
If
the
you want to
first,
change
well,
the
the first
language,
one,
I'm fine.
the first one is talking about. I'm just sorry.
It talks about the
It talks about
airport
Peatone,
and-
Wilmington, and Crete Monee. I mean, Wilmington, Peatone goes basically across the county. What we're talking about, Crete Monee, is
Yeah, it's
specific.
really part of that other
Eastern,
feasibility, right?
Right. So,
Okay,
but
that's fine.
can I just make a quick comment? And first of all, I want to say I'm no means arguing or disagreeing with what Judy's saying, but I think one, you give John Grueling too much credit because he's not doing all this, and I've given him a hard time about that. Is he doesn't have any transportation dollars. He's working on behalf of other communities. The municipalities are the one who cite these projects, and they're the ones who then we as a county have to respond to oftentimes because they plot a project here and there's no road to get there, and that's where the county roads and the township roads, as you know very well. So that's number one. But on a prospective, looking to the future, I think we are doing some of that work, and this is more for the rest of you who may not know. I think Judy knows this, but with the CMAP work we're doing around the intermodals with the truck routing and the land use planning, I think we're starting to go in that direction. But I just had a conversation with some of our land use staff and some of the county board leadership. We have our land resource management plan, I think that's what you call it, the long-range plan, but it's not been updated in a while. I think that's something, following these current studies, that's probably the next step to look at what our plan is for the land use planning. That doesn't mean we can dictate to anybody else, but as far as the county's jurisdiction is concerned, updating that, because I was told by our staff that really when that was done the last time, didn't totally contemplate all the things that are happening right now. And there's obviously things that are going to continue to happen, and you're never going to be current, but I think there's enough big things happening, and we've got a little more perspective. It may be the next step, separate from this committee, to look at.
So, but truly, John Grueling boasts, if you look at his annual report, he boasts about all the different things that he's brought in, that the CED has brought in. So you might say that, Nick, but actually he is going out
But
there.
it happens in municipalities. I mean, we just got a brand new one, Veterans Point. They just paved over acres and acres and acres of cornfields. And who did it? The mayor of Bolingbrook. Now, maybe John Grueling had something to do with it, maybe not. But it was done in a municipality, not done in unincorporated.
And so it's done, and those big projects happen in the municipality for one basic reason: sewer and water.
Right.
That's why.
Yeah.
You know, it's sewer and water. So we have to bring a viability, at least that's what I'm working towards doing, is bringing viability to what the agricultural area brings, what we can do to make a nice regenerative food source that's available that we can be proud of. I have a friend from the East Coast who does organic beef, and he'd love to do that. And I talked with Representative Thaddeus Jones, who has a friend in South Holland, he knows a guy, well, probably his district, and they're looking to relocate. Well, that would be a great thing to bring those two together and upgrade that. I'm just saying, all I see is that we are looking at talking about the airport, talk about the Atlanta, more roads and more housing, and we need to, all of us, take that. We've adopted this, every South Suburban mayor, and I'm going to be holding them accountable for that, because they need to look at outside, because their goal is to grow as big as a municipality as they can.
Well, and I appreciate you holding your folks accountable. What I will say is people won't be moving to the county if we don't have safe, clean water. Come on up, sir.
Nice segue, by the way.
Yeah, I try. I'm trying to keep us moving. A couple of us are on the next committee meeting, and it starts in 5 minutes.
Can I just say something about this?
Quickly, please.
Okay, thank you. Nick, I wanted to ask you a question. When we were asked to provide feedback about areas of concern, I submitted quite a few, and they were centered around Naperville, Bolingbrook, and even going, heading south on 59, those areas. We have a lot of flooding and congestion, and going down Veterans Road there, past those warehouses that continue to be built.
Right.
If you're there around 4 p.m., you might as well you could just park and watch a movie. And I mean, the building continues, and I don't really see any of that in our plan here.
There's
so.
only one county road there, and it's Weber, and
I guess,
I mean, there's not a
Julie,
lot.
I'm not sure, you're saying you submitted comments on the legislative agenda or for the transportation plan?
It was regarding the transportation, but I thought we were compiling
well,
some of that
I think
information
maybe
here.
this conversation's better offline so that we can keep our agenda moving. And it's a transportation issue, I understand, but we've got another person to hear from, and 2 of us are on the next committee, which starts in 1 minute. And we've had this gentleman here for quite a while. I want him to be able to say what he needs to say, what we need to hear, dealing with our agenda. So, go.
Wait,
Go.
I'm sorry, Jake, are you moving on from the legislative agenda?
Well, this is part of the legislative agenda. This is the clean construction debris, demolition
Okay,
debris.
I want to make sure that
Yeah.
if we do a motion at the end to move it forward.
That's what I'm trying to get there.
Perfect, just making sure.
This is part of the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. What would you guys like to know?
Well, you know, I came to their office, Dean was there, and Eric, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, gosh, thanks. I got the right name. Uh-oh, are we in trouble? No. Okay. And got really kind of a bit of background on clean construction demolition.